Hello everyone, today we're going to go over Hannah Arendt's book, The Origins of Totalitarianism. We're going to go over the first chapter today, which is entitled Anti-Semitism as an Outrage to Common Sense. Now, Arendt wants to question the notion of anti-Semitism. Now, common sense tells us that anti-Semitism is hatred of the Jewish race. However, Hannah Arendt believes that this is a too simplified notion, and in order to really understand what anti-Semitism meant, at least the modern anti-Semitism that resulted in the Nazi regime, we need to look back at the history between the 17th century and the 20th century. In this chapter, Arendt goes over each common sense fallacy about anti-Semitism and gives a refutation to each. The first common sense fallacy is xenophobia and nationalism. So, anti-Semitism was thought to be a xenophobic response of a hatred against those that are not part of the nation. However, Arendt looks into this and understands that when anti-Semitism was rising in the end of the 19th century, nation-states and the idea of nationalism was actually on the decline. Furthermore, Nazism is not a national movement. Arendt says that Nazism is an international movement that's based on an ideology. It doesn't care about nation-states, it doesn't care about borders. What it cares about is imperialistic motive to expand as much as possible. The second common sense fallacy is the scapegoat fallacy, and there's a joke that's said in World War I that she cites as an anti-Semite claimed that the Jews had caused the war. And the other says, yes, the Jews and the bicyclists. And the anti-Semite says, why the bicyclists? And the other says, why the Jews? The general idea here is that any group could have been picked, and it just happened to be the Jews that were picked by the Nazis for the extermination. However, Arendt rejects this notion because she goes back and looks at what totalitarian regimes do, and what they do, according to Arendt, is that they follow a movement that's based on an ideology. And this ideology has to be accepted by the majority of the people within the nation before it can actually be believed. And this ideology is what Nazism uses to target the Jews. So there must have been some presupposed ideology that others believed to even start attacking the Jews in the first place. So the scapegoat theory doesn't hold water according to Arendt. The next theory, common sense fallacy, is called the eternal anti-Semitism theory. This theory states that anti-Semitism has always existed. It's been eternal, and it's just normal in how the world is of why Jews are hated, and it's the thing that's never going to go away. This is dangerous because both the anti-Semite and the Jew absolve their responsibility as a part of this relationship. The Jew absolves it because it's an unconditional relationship that they believe the world has with them. And the anti-Semite absolves their responsibility because they think their activity of hating Jews is a normal thing that they can't hold individual responsibility of. Now, the eternal anti-Semitism theory has a benefit that the scapegoat theory doesn't. It answers the question, why the Jews, of all people? But both of them are escapist. None of them assume responsibility. The scapegoat theory discharges the victim of any responsibility. Since it could have been any group, no action by the Jews could have prevented this. And as I said before, eternal anti-Semitism absolves both the responsibility of the anti-Semite and the Jew. So why is escapism dangerous? Well, Arendt looks into this and decides that when we try to escape from responsibility, we try to separate our thinking from our action. And it's this basically has it's this that is kind of the banality of evil that she says later when she's in the Eichmann trial, and we'll go over this later. Arendt says that we can't simply shrug off responsibility, and therefore we have to look back at the past and historical events in order to understand why anti-Semitism came about and what factors came into being. Quote unquote, modern anti-Semitism must be seen in the more general framework of the development of the nation-state, and at the same time its source must be found in certain aspects of Jewish history, and specifically Jewish functions during the centuries. Thanks for watching. In the next video we'll go over chapter 2, where Arendt goes into the political history of the relationship between the Jews and the state, and also society. Thank you.